Welcome to my Optimist friends. I am Chuck Corsenborn, president of the Optimist Club of Covington. We meet every Wednesday at 12 noon at Pee Wee's Place, 2325 Anderson Road, Crescent Springs. For our TBNK viewers, today is the 20th of September, 2023. Today's presentation is videoed and rebroadcast on Spectrum Channel 203, Cincinnati Bell, now Alta Fiber, Channel 815, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Rebroadcast on TBNK Telecommunications broadcast of Northern Kentucky. Also, stay connected with the TBNK to go, on demand, TBNK FB, and Optimist FB. James Morlock is our program director, editor, and camera, and makes the rebroadcast of Optimist Club possible. We have a guest today, Darlene Plummer, a lady whom I work with, and I'm very pleased to have her on our team for collecting taxes and dispersing them. Darlene Plummer is the Property Valuation Administrator, PVA, for Kenton County, the third largest county in Kentucky. Prior to being elected as PVA in 2014, Darlene was the Chief Deputy and has been a deputy of the PVA office since 2001. In her initial years with the office, Darlene was an assessor in the residential department until placed in charge of the commercial industrial department. Darlene's most recent accolade includes earning the designation of Assessment Administrator Specialist from the International Association of Assessing Officers. Darlene is the first and only PVA in the state Commonwealth of Kentucky to earn this prestigious designation. Darlene is also proud to be a Senior Kentucky Assessor, Certified Kentucky Assessor, Education Chair, a Facilitator for the Department of Revenue, and a real estate broker. Darlene is currently working toward an additional designation from the IAAO, and Darlene's background in real estate is extensive. In 1986, Darlene obtained her real estate license and later became a licensed real estate broker in 2005. During that same frame, Darlene was senior property manager for a small management company and managed several types of properties, including condominium communities, offices, apartment buildings, and single-family homes. This experience has benefited Darlene immensely in the PVA office. Darlene earned her business management degree cum laude and a certificate in accounting from Northern Kentucky University. Darlene enjoys volunteering when possible and has been involved with organizations such as Big Step, which is an organization which operates a charity donating baskets and things of that nature for Christmas and Thanksgiving people. And the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, which includes a fundraiser trip to New Mexico, where she completed a 100-mile bike ride all in one day. Darlene also went to South Africa on a mission trip with Crossroads Community Church and is an active volunteer with the Diocesan Catholic Children's Home in Fort Mitchell. It's my pleasure to introduce Darlene Plummer, our PVA. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everyone, the Optimist Club, for having me here today. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for another wonderful plaque. I do have the other one displayed in my office. And looking at the Optimist Creed, one thing that really struck resonance with me in our office and what we try to practice as well is to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best. And we do our best in our PVA office to help the public and our constituents and property owners throughout Kenton County. So again, thank you. Let me make sure this is on here. Okay, I'm Darlene Plummer. As Sheriff Corsenborn made me sound really good on paper, actually. So I'm your PVA. I've been your Property Valuation Administrator since 2014. As the sheriff mentioned, I am proud that I am the first and only PVA in Kentucky to have earned, through education, extensive testing, numerous seminars, the Assessment Administration Specialist through the International Association of Assessing Officers. So in our office, we strive continuing education so that we can continue to improve our services and do the best that we can to determine 100% fair and equitable assessments throughout the county. One thing that I wanted to point out that the PVA office is a state office. Many people think that we are a county office. We are a state office with county jurisdiction. So people ask me sometimes, well, who do I answer to or who's my boss? First, I want to say the constituents and my general public, because if I'm not doing a good job, I won't be reelected. But aside from that, we do report to the Department of Revenue. We are state employees. So before we get started, most of you, I'm sure all of you know what the PVA office does. So this is your home as seen by you. Beautifully manicured lawn, freshly painted red door, the garage, everything's intact, beautiful. And you decide it's time to sell it because, as we all know, property values are at an all-time high, right? So you decide to put your home on the market, offer it for sale, and you get an offer, and it's reflective of how the prospective buyer sees your home. Oops, went too far. Again, went too far. Okay, there we go. So the offer is reflected on how the buyer sees your home, and they're going to have to probably put some shutters up. Needs all new landscaping. It's going to require some paint. Pretty bland. So regardless, you and the buyer arrive at a fair selling price, and the buyer goes to apply for their loan, and this is how your home is now seen by the lender. So they're going to lend their money, their funds based on how they see your home. Anyway, you're getting the loan as part of the whole process. The buyer decides they need it inspected, and gotta have this. Okay, your home is seen by the inspector. All this work needs done. You get a whole list of things that you have to repair so that you can proceed with the sale. But in any event, that's how the inspector sees your home. And lastly, your home is seen by the PVA.
Oh, yeah.
Little PVA, we got to keep it fun, right? All right, so why do we do what we do? The foundation for taxation comes directly from the Constitution, which says that all property, unless exempted specifically, must be taxed. Constitution also states that the PVA is required to assess all property at 100% fair market value. The General Assembly, per KRS 132-191, you won't have a quiz on these KRS numbers, but it does require that all property not exempted is to be assessed at 100% fair cash value, and that is the value that is estimated at the price the property would bring at a fair voluntary sale, and that it is the responsibility of the PVA administrator, such as myself, to value property in accordance with the Constitution. So people don't realize that we are charged by the KRS to assess property. That's our job. What is fair market value? It is a motivated buyer and seller. The parties are well informed and acting in their own best interest. There's reasonable exposure time in the open market, and the price is not affected by special influences such as duress. Types of duress would be foreclosure, divorce maybe, something like that. The PVA, we have quite an extensive mission statement. I just wanted to point out a couple of the more relevant ones to talk about today. But part of our mission statement is to provide courteous, accurate, and efficient services for the benefit of Kenton County and its citizens. And part of that, to achieve it, we assess all property at 100% fair cash value or at agricultural value in an equitable and unbiased manner. So a couple years ago, I had a property owner accuse our office of playing favoritism to the judge executive's in-laws. I'm like, I don't even know who that is. I don't even know his wife's maiden name. Couldn't even tell you. Most of what we do is by what's called a PIDN, personal identification number. We don't see names. I had someone ask me the other day if we made an adjustment because of someone's particular position. And I said, I'm gonna assess my parents, my sisters, my cousins, all at 100% fair market value, regardless of any relation. So, an equitable and unbiased manner. One of our other efforts to equalize and fair and equitable assessments is to acquire new technology, to implement and maintain a cost-effective and up-to-date property tax administration system. So we are constantly, it's an evolution. It's always in flux. Sometimes people think, maybe if someone's in the office too long, that maybe they get stagnant. That is not the case with the Kenton County PVA. We are constantly exploring new technology, new ways to attain 100% fair and equitable assessments. Now, doesn't mean it's always right on, but we work really hard to make sure that we are equitably and fairly assessing. So to that end, I like to kind of refer to this as Groundhog Year. We're basically doing the same thing. The reval circle of life is the same annual cycle. So the first thing that we do is we determine fair and equitable assessments as of January 1, which is our statutory date. There's a recap that's due to the Department of Revenue. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but so basically this is the same thing we're doing every year. The only difference is we're working in a different area of the county. How do we achieve fair and equitable assessments? We have contracted with an independent vendor that does a flyover every 2 years. So what that does is allow us to see 360 degrees around every property. We have extensive maps which will tell us property lines. We can tell, for example, if it's a double lot, which might be worth more than just a single lot. If they could actually sell that lot, and if it's platted as an extra lot, they could potentially sell that off. That's going to make that particular lot more valuable than maybe a neighbor who only has a single lot. We maintain current pictures. This is a nice picture of our place hosting us today, Pee Wee's. Shout out to should we put the phone number or website so give them some advertisement or hours of operation? Anyway, so we do maintain pictures. We also maintain current sketches. A lot of what we do is based on price per square foot, living area, and or building area. So we have people in our office that work specifically on making sure our sketches are accurate. Now, the little bit of the meat is everything. Now, people are wondering, okay, when is my assessment going to potentially go up, right? So this is our quadrennial review schedule. This is something that I have to submit every 4 years to the Department of Revenue. Again, that they have oversight for our office. So I submit this, and it is subject to approval by the Department of Revenue every 4 years. And I do have some extra copies that I brought if you're curious as to what area we're doing next. So again, as I said, it's kind of Groundhog Year. We're doing the same thing every year, only in a different part of the county. Kent County has about 65,000 parcels, so there's just no way to do physical examinations at 65,000 every year. It's just not feasible. So we've divided, as most counties throughout the Commonwealth have done, and we've divided it up by area. So for 2024, we are currently working in what's considered Quad 2, and that is this area here. So if you live in these areas, your assessment potentially may change for 2024. Crestview Hills, Villa Hills Fire, No City, Crescent Springs, Crestview Hills, Edgewood, Fort Wright, Taylor Mill, and Villa Hills. And Coco, is it okay if I call you Coco?
We're not gonna tax those places this year.
No, we're gonna, anyone that's here today is exempt. No, don't, cut that off. Cut that off of there. So, yes, so we are required by statute, again, to physically inspect at least an area of the county at least once every 4 years. That does not mean that every property doesn't have an assessment. It just means that we're required to what's called physically inspect at least once every 4 years. So, Cook had mentioned that she got quite a few calls from property owners in Fort Mitchell, which explains why, because we physically inspected Quad 1, of which Fort Mitchell was a part of. So there were some significant increases in values because of the market. Again, we are required to assess at 100% fair market value.
Those are all rich people.
Oh, okay. They can afford it, right? Yeah. No, I don't mean to make light of it at all. I know it, we realize that it does potentially impact property owners' finances and their checkbook, and we take it very seriously. And again, we want to do the best. So PVA, our statutory date is January 1. So whatever is in place as of January 1 is what we are assessing. So say, for example, a home is under construction and it wasn't started or wasn't even near enough completion as of January 1. That would not be assessed then until the following year when it's complete or near completed. Conversely, we've had this happen, and we're looking at, we just had to come up where, someone had experienced a fire in November of, say, 2022, but that home was there January 1. And the same with motor vehicles. If you have the car or the car's on the road as of January 1, it is assessed. That is our statutory date. How do we come up with our values? These are recognized approaches to value in the statutes. We use a market sales approach, cost approach, income approach. I won't go into too much depth since I only have 15 minutes to talk here. We look at that. We also analyze trends throughout the market, throughout the county, throughout the state. Basically, the principle of substitution is the basis for our assessment, which states that a buyer will pay no more for a property than the cost of an equally desirable and comparable alternative property. So that's that's a common premise in all three approaches to value. Most of existing homes, most existing subdivisions, we're going to use the market approach, which is based on sales that are occurring. So what I'm required to do as the PVA, again, we come up with our preliminary assessment roll as of January 1. I'm required to submit what's called a first recap. That's due the first Monday in April. So we are required to adhere to a state calendar. The Department of Revenue, again, who has oversight of the PVA offices, they must approve this preliminary tax roll. So if not approved, we cannot proceed with the statutory open inspection period, which typically will begin the first Monday of May. Now, I will tell you, when we did Quad 1, quadrant, which was Covington, Ludlow, and Bromley a year ago, I submitted my numbers, and they came back and said that we were $159 million too low. So, it's not like I have the ultimate say on values. They're using value thresholds, assessment thresholds. They look at our sales ratios, studies. So if our office is not keeping up with the market, per se, because we're supposed to be at 100%, then I cannot get approved to move forward with that open inspection period. So if we do change a value, we are required, again, by statute, to send a notice of the increase. We try to do whatever we can every year to make sure people are opening these notices, because there is a time-sensitive date. And if you miss it, there's nothing else that we can do for the current year. So be on the lookout. Make sure you don't just say, oh, Darlene Plummer, and throw it in the junk pile. But PVA values are not set in stone. We've heard this quite a bit. I could never sell my home for that. There is a statutory process that we are required to follow. It's called an open inspection period. Typically, provided we are on the statutory calendar and meeting those dates, typically begins the 13 days beginning the first Monday in May. But you can call anytime after January 1, but once that 13th day comes, we're not able to take any more requests to review your value. Briefly, and all this is on our website, there's an appeal process, again, statutory dictated, conference with the PVA rep. We try to keep these user-friendly, informal. If we are unable to reach an agreement, there is a step 2, which is going to an independent local board of appeals. This consists of 3 reputable property owners appointed by 1 your fiscal court, the county judge's exec, and the mayor of the largest city assessment, which is currently Covington. So again, people don't realize that it's independent of us. They're going to either uphold the PVA's assessment, come up with a different assessment in between the PVAs and the property owners, or they can actually increase it at their own discretion. But that's independent of our office. And then if the property owner or the PVA office is still aggrieved by that decision by the local board, they can actually take it to the state board, which is the KBTA. Kind of a unprecedented is kind of the word of the last few years, right? We have 6 or 7 going to the KBTA this year that we were unable to resolve. So that's a step that they can take. And there's actually another court of appeals that is way higher, but we don't like to get to that point. We try to work with the property owner before it even gets to the local board. But the burden of proof is on the property owner, so as long as the property owner is supporting their value or somewhere in between, we try to work that out with them before it goes to the local board. This, again, unprecedented. I've been there going on 23 years, 22 years, and we had the first time in my history, and even my predecessors that I'm aware of, we had 2 boards this year because we had so many people going to the local board. But again, keep in mind, we don't have the ultimate say on the values. If we're not keeping up with the market, the Department of Revenue is not going to approve our numbers. Once we get through open inspection, I submit a final recap to the Department of Revenue. They'll hopefully stamp it with their approval at that point, and then the county and the cities will set their tax rates based on the PVA's assessment roll. And then consequently, the bills get issued and sent to the property owners. And it's been a really immense pleasure to work with the sheriff in his office. I think we have a great...
I want to make a comment when you get done about it.
Okay. And then lastly, I don't know how I'm doing on time here, but...
3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Just lastly, the PVA office, again, is responsible for determining 100% fair market value of all property throughout the Kenton County. The PVA does not create value. The market determines value through the actions of buyers and sellers. We do not set any tax rates. We don't determine taxing entities or taxing districts, and we do not collect any taxes. We get quite a few calls that, well, what's my tax bill? How much do I owe? So again, we recognize and appreciate that our assessments do impact the tax bills potentially, but we do not set rates. We are charged with 100% fair market assessment, regardless of what the ultimate tax rate is going to be. I have seen situations where, because of the assessment increase, that cities and even the fiscal court have been able to lower their rates because of that. But we can't take that into consideration when we are determining the fair market value. So thank you again for the opportunity to meet with the Optimist Club. I sincerely appreciate it. Share.
Before you stop recording, I want to make a comment. pardon me for moving around here. I got a
Sure,
new
come on.
Darlene, don't go away.
Okay.
Darlene and I have to work so close together that if we didn't, we would be in a heck of a, what do we have, over 60,000 tax bills? She has to give that information to me, and I'm responsible for printing them up and see that they get mailed. That's a lot of coalition, and if we didn't cooperate with one another 100%, I don't know what would happen. It'd be chaos. And she and I have worked together for more than time that she's been PVA, and I couldn't be more pleased with our relationship. I thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. You too, as well. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Optimist Club of Covington, and I am proud to reintroduce Darlene Plummer, the PVA for the County of Kenton.
Thank you. I had got some wonderful questions. I'll try to get through whatever I can in my 10-minute allotment. But if you have any questions whatsoever, please call me direct. I am always here for you, and check our website, call our office. And I did want to just make a disclaimer. You know, they say never lose your sense of humor, so I know I made light of a couple things during my presentation, but again, think only of the best, work only for the best, which is Kent County, and to expect only the best. My employees will tell you I'm very serious about my job, so even though I made some comments, please know that I have your best interest at heart. One of the questions, do states have different statutory requirements? Absolutely. Kentucky is 100% fair market state. I know Ohio does it, even though we're so close. I get questions, well, Ohio does it this way. So I can't answer to other states' policies. I think they are a lesser percentage. They're open inspections every 6 years, but yes, absolutely. Different states have different requirements. A question that did come up I wanted to cover, even if an assessment does not go up, you as a property owner have the right to ask for a review of that value any year, every year. So we are in an unprecedented market. If that should change, you know, encourage your clients, customers, and as a property owner, know that you can contact us any year, every year to ask for a review of your value. Now, it may not necessarily get changed to where you want it, may not get changed at all, but again, if we can't reach a compromise or a resolution, I should say, you have further avenues that you can explore, such as the local board and the KBTA. So if a house sold for $175,000 and fixed up and resold for $750,000, yes, that's correct. The new taxes would be based, the new assessment would be based on the new purchase price, $750,000. We would assume that was, again, fair market value, mutually agreeable to the buyer and seller, open market, et cetera. So unless we were notified otherwise, we would adopt that $750,000 as the new assessment moving forward. Mythical city, average assessed value goes up 20%. Given a city can only raise taxes 4%, does that mean that the city tax rate decreases 16%? Again, the PVA sets no tax rates. We don't collect taxes. I cannot attest to, there is something called the 4%, where cities can raise it without going to a ballot, I believe. But again, our job as the PVA office is 100% fair market value, regardless of what the taxing entities take from there. A good example, there is something, my standard disclaimers, we have nothing to do with taxes. And that is true. There's something called seek money that the schools get, whatever, but, you know, there have been instances where the schools, because of that money, haven't been particularly happy with the PVA office because it does affect it. Department of Revenue, you know, I was instructed, Darlene, your job is to assess at 100% fair market value, and the taxing entities will have to then take it from there to determine the best rate or how to set their rates. So again, to that end, you know, again, we recognize that our assessments may potentially impact people's checkbook and their pocketbook, particularly seniors on a fixed income. Unfortunately, there's not a program or a statute that says, you know, that we can take into consideration people's ability to pay their taxes as much as we would like to. We don't have programs other than make sure everything that we send out, we try to get the homestead exemption out there. You know, you'd be surprised that people come in turning 70 years old and they, oh, I just found out about it. Now, fortunately, we can go back 2 years. So if someone paid their bill 2 years ago and they just found out about it, we can refund the last 2 years as long as they own and occupied their home. But beyond that, you know, we cringe when people come in and say, I just found out about it, and they're 70, and they missed out on this free, wonderful benefit, you know, for more years. So we try everything that we send out. We're doing the senior picnic, What's Happening, which comes out twice a year. Almost everything that we publish or put out there is to make sure people know about the homestead exemption. And there's also an exemption for disability, if you're 100% disability. So we're going to try to do kind of an appeal to realtors and title companies to do some nice pamphlets to make sure that they are also informing people at the closing table and that would be eligible, to make sure that they're taking advantage of that benefit. I think the sheriff mentioned, and someone had asked, to my knowledge, and again, PVA doesn't collect any taxes or send the bills, but to my knowledge, there is no option to pay your taxes over time. No, that might be something that the state, you know, eventually comes up with, but, so I think,
One, you know, monthly payment.
yeah. And I'm gonna defer to, again, the sheriff. To my knowledge, there is no, or even the cities don't have a payment plan, but anyway.
You have a minute for closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you so much. It's been my true pleasure to be here. And if you have any questions, you know, please feel free to call me directly. Check our website. We try to update that and address as many questions as we can that people might have. I did have some extra copies if you're curious as to when your area, if anybody needs one, along with our pamphlets, if anybody need one. So, again, thank you.